Happy Fortitude in 15, back like we never left for another episode of the Elevation Nation podcast. Parker, a couple weeks ago, he texted me and said, dude, you got to check out this documentary on Netflix. It is right up our alley. And I did. I checked it out. Enlighten the people. We're not getting paid for this, by the way, but we would gladly be a sponsor. Tell him, Parker, what documentary you recommended I watch.
It's called Stutz. It's on Netflix. It is a documentary produced by our favorite Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill, fun fact, went to my camp. Very funny. For one season.
Really?
1 year.
I didn't know that.
1 year. 1 year. And then he was done. But it's a documentary that Jonah Hill produced and directed and started with his therapist. And I think it was just a really awesome documentary. It literally was just him and his therapist talking about the different practices that the therapist has helped Jonah with, as he's navigated life. And I was like, wow, I'm watching this. I watch it myself. I'm like, I gotta send this to Sam. Sam may cry watching this. May get really into it. There are a lot of cool little new, I feel like you hear about a lot of therapy, but like in this documentary, it showed like a different take on therapy, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you felt that.
No, I certainly did. I didn't cry, but you're the one that cries in movies. I just cry in general. Big difference.
I don't even know if I've ever seen you cry before, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
You like to say you cry, but I don't actually think I've ever seen you cry.
I know exactly the last time I cried with you. I cried when we went abroad. You have a video of me.
You haven't cried since 2017?
No, that's just the last time that you saw me cry.
So you don't cry?
That's not what I said. Why do you twist everything I say, bro? You're so fucking annoying. No, that's not what I said. I said that's the last time you saw me cry. So there's a difference. I don't cry in front of you because you don't live in the same city as me. But That being said, super cool documentary. They have a lot of interesting points in it. And I think you definitely showed some different techniques in therapy in a more visual way that people can understand. So I'll highlight a couple of them for you. One of them, he has this concept of the pearl necklace. And so just like on a pearl necklace where there's kind of the thread of the necklace and then a pearl, and then you have to thread the necklace and another pearl. He said that's very similar to life and kind of how it works, right? We work to get these achievements on our necklace of life, and every single one adds another pearl. Every single thing that we go through, another pearl. And I thought that was interesting. He then prefaced it by saying that in each pearl, there's a little bit of a turd, which I thought was hilarious. But in every achievement that you have, you're going to hit some rough patches and some rough spots with it. And I thought that was a really cool way to think about things, where we're all trying to write our own like book of life, our own story of what Sam or Parker want to be known as. And we're really just trying to tie together different achievements in our life into one cohesive story. And so I thought that was a cool reminder of, Parker, you always echo this to me, of appreciating the achievements in our life and having time to reflect on them and appreciate them before we move on to the next thing. And I thought that was a cool analogy for having you remember all the amazing things that you've already accomplished.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool way that they showed it in the documentary and the way you just explained it. It's crazy to me to think that like a guy like Jonah Hill, a guy who's had so much success, and he's a funny guy. He has done some of the best movies we've seen in the last 20 years, some of the funniest, but he's also done some of the most serious. And like, it's crazy to think that like to see that other side of him, and that like he like struggles too, and he's very open and vocal about those struggles. And you just like, it was a good eye opener for me to just be like, have some perspective. Like, just because someone might seem like they're more successful than you are, or in a different, ladder of where you are, it doesn't mean that they're happier. It doesn't mean that you're happier, or worse off. It's just like it was a nice reminder for me to like watch, and I'm obviously like what Stutz has done for Jonah Hill is super incredible. I mean, they talk through it. Like he said, he's been to many therapists, but the only one that actually could get to him was this guy. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, certainly fame and wealth we've seen does not equate to happiness for sure, right? We have a lot of stories of celebrities not being happy. And so I think, one of the things that we wanted to do with Elevation Nation was shine a light on some of these struggles that you and I are going through, some of the issues that we're facing as young adults, and shed light on that. And it's really cool to see celebrities bring mental health. And again, not necessarily like, I think Jonah Hill obviously is an extreme of truly struggling and having some mental health problems he needed to work through and some serious trauma. But then also Parker for both of us, right? Like just wanting to keep our mental health on track, right? And keep it sane, like not wanting to slip to a point where we actually have some serious issues to work through. And so I think staying on top of that with some of these tools that Stutz has is pretty interesting. I'll highlight another concept that I thought was pretty cool. He talked about the like human desire to fail and be vulnerable to send out a signal to the world that connects all of us together. And by that,
explain that. What do you mean?
Yeah, and by that I mean that I think part of the reason why humans have such anxiety scrolling through Instagram is we see the idealistic world. All of us are searching for empathy, and we want other people to show that they've been or are going through some of the struggles that we are also going through. And by being vulnerable and sharing that publicly with others, you rally around each other in this sense of community of like, we can go through and get through the suckiness together, right? It's a lot easier. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It's a lot more important and needed to feel supported in your lowest moments than it is to feel them in your highest moments, in my opinion, right?
That makes sense. So you're saying like, when we're going through our lowest of our low moments, it's important to, if you're going through something challenging, it's just to feel supported by other people who are going through something that is similar to you, or just going through something in general, or just having that lending hand when, you need it.
I think it can be all of the above, right? I think it's nice to have people who are going through the exact same thing as you so you can get specific. I think it's nice to have people who are going through something else so you can see other problems, right? And compare yourself and say, okay, like I don't have it that bad, right? We talked to Josiah, his episode's getting released in a couple weeks, right? And he mentioned that he uses that technique as well of, hearing some of the other stories of other people who are going through things and putting things in perspective. So I think it's both of those. And then I also think it's just having someone to listen and lend a hand and to show that you're not alone, right? The human species as a whole has evolved because we figured out how to work together in communities. And so I think it's inherently in our DNA that when we are going through struggles, we tend to lean on our town, our community, our village, our people, our virtual world to help each other through. And so I think it's just a cool way to kind of reach out into the world by showing a little bit of vulnerability to get that support system that you need.
So on the topic of vulnerability and the topic of therapy, I'm curious, Sam, I know you see a therapist pretty regularly. What is something that's top of mind for you that you feel comfortable sharing with Elevation Nation?
Yeah, I think one of them was some things that I'm going through at work, right? With our companies going through a lot of changes. Obviously, we got some news yesterday, Parker, that changed my mind, but for a little bit I was worried with the financial downturn of what would shake up for my job, and would I get to that next level? Would I even have a job come the new year? I think recessions and like the looming eeriness behind them is very scary for any generation, but our generation, who I don't think have really lived through one. We thought we were going to see one with COVID, but then it kind of ticked up the other way. And so we don't know what that feels like and how to react.
Well, I feel like a lot of people lost their jobs during COVID. You have to remember that. We're fortunate that we were able to have our jobs. I feel like a lot of people got laid off.
Yeah, they did, but the economy as a whole seemed to have grown. But yes, you're right. So I personally hadn't lived through anything like that, and so there was
you were
that was
talking
kind of just
about
in the back of my mind.
Just like a fear or the unknowing of not knowing what was going to come. Is that the thing that gets you?
Well, yeah, I think all humans struggle with ambiguity, right? Especially type A humans like myself who like to plan things out. And so one of the things that I work on is how I can better accept ambiguity and things outside of my control. And so we were just talking about that a little bit, which I thought was a cool one. I also, as you know, my largest fear and what I talk to my therapist the most about is my fear of plateauing in life and in my joy and in my happiness and reaching a point where I feel like I'm either stagnant or going downward. Part of the reason why I think elevator is such a spot on term for myself. So that's my biggest fear that we work through as well. But what about you? You haven't been to therapy in a while. Do you have it all figured out, or
well,
are you making JJ your therapist?
Clearly, you just assume I've been to therapy, of course, in the last few months. It's been an interesting few months for me. Obviously, got a lot going on in my life, very busy. But I also had a team member at work who went through a really serious traumatic injury, and I've been talking and just staying connected with a professional around navigating that and understanding like the uncertainty with it, and I think that's been a challenge for me, for my colleagues, for his family, for him. And so, that's something that came out of nowhere. And so it's been, talking to someone's nice to just be able to have a different perspective on it. But, some things like I'm with you. It's like the uncertainty about things, and you just got to kind of look forward to the things that you can control and look forward to some things that you assume will happen. And just hope for the best. And I think out of this whole situation, and what this experience, what happened with my buddy, and it's just like, you can't take a day for granted. You never know what's going to happen, and life is random. It really is. And I think that was a reminder to me that things just happen. And while we try to control the way we feel, we try to control what we do, we try to control how our day is going to go, we have no control at the end of the day. Things just happen, and life is random, and we think there's order to everything, but in reality, there's no order to anything. Things just fold as they do. And so I don't want to make that depressing. I think that's, it's just something I've really realized over the last few months. So yeah.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better. Sam and his family were obviously praying for every single day. But let's give some elevator shout outs here to end this episode, this introspective, this deep episode. Per usual, man, we get deep. I'm going to give a shout out to elevator number 35, Hayden Humphrey. He's revamped his business, and he's focusing on people that are in their so-called dream jobs, but are actually not too happy, and how to unscript that script for them of thinking that they needed that dream job and that they got there. It's all roses, but in reality, it's not. So shout out Hayden for rethinking some of his business. I know a lot of people that can benefit from that.
I miss Hayden. We need to catch up with Hayden. Hayden's a great guy. He's always like got really, really interesting ideas about like the world and life and in general. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's very, very cool. All right, I'm going to shout out recent big elevator number 96, Jimmy Sotos. When we talked with Jimmy, he hinted that he was starting his acting career and getting involved in some TVs. I believe he was even shooting while we were talking to him. I don't even remember, but it was something around that time. But his acting debut is coming on a show called Wonderkin, and the TV show trailer was released on November 27th. So if you want to check it out, check out Wonderkin and Elevator, Jimmy Soto. It's pretty freaking cool. Sam, we've talked to a TV actor personality / influencer / artist / model / everything. Well done,
he's
Jimmy.
pretty talented. We love you, Jimmy. All right, Elevation Nation. That's all for today. Till next week. Peace.